Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Business Innovators Radio. This is your host, Constant Taylor. Today, we have a very special guest on the show, and they're going to share some very exciting information with us. So, if you're looking to increase your personal and professional effectiveness, then you've come to the right place. Our special guest today is Edith Onderick-Harvey. Edith has been speaking professionally for over 5 years, and the content that she primarily speaks on is leading change, motivation, and engaging people. She's based out of the Boston area, and her latest book is called Getting Real. Edith, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Constant. It's great to be here.
And we're great to have you. I'd like to kick off the program by asking you if you can tell the listeners a little bit about your business and how you help your clients become more successful and effective.
Absolutely. So my business is really focused on two things. It's really working with organizations as they are facing rapid change. And that change can be a lot of different things. It can be there's a change in their business strategy. It could be they're going through rapid growth. Could be that they're experiencing changes in their marketplace. But I really have a deep background, 25 years of background in helping companies, individuals, and teams lead during times of change and cope with the change that goes on. The second piece of that, then, is that I also have an expertise that I bring to the table around really developing the leaders, the teams, and the organization that you need to take your business where you need it to go. So, you're facing all this change, you're facing these things that at times seem overwhelming. How do you wrap your arms around that and really be proactive about, again, how you're developing leaders, how you're building capabilities for teams, and how you're creating capacity in your organization to get you where you want to go?
Okay, it makes perfect sense. Now, in terms of helping, you can't help everyone. So what is your ideal customer look like? The person that, or the company that I can absolutely add value to this organization and help them?
Sure. So what they tend to look like is this. They tend to look like a company that has a senior leader who has recognized that they've got a ton of change going on and they're not doing a great job understanding it and executing against it. So they reach out to me and they say, can you please come help us understand what change is all about? Is there any rhyme or reason to this thing? How do I make sure it gets executed well? How do I get people on board? How do I do that? And when they're facing this need to transform, and sometimes it's transforming themselves to deal with this rapid change. Sometimes it's the team or the organization. What they're looking for is a strategic partner who can work with them. And so it's really those companies. They tend to be, again, ones that are at that point where they're really ready for some strategic work and some more structured work to go on to really move the needle for them.
And what are the specific problems, either real or perceived, that you're able to solve for them?
So again, like I've been saying, I feel like I sound like a bit like a broken record, but the core of it really is how do I respond to this rapid change? Mm-hmm. And so the specific problems can include things like, how do I build an organization that can be innovative and then can position us to deal with high growth, this new business strategy that we've got, this new cultural imperative that the CEO has laid forward, or to build out a new function because the company is growing and they need some, different types of functions and groups within the company. Another one is you've got a team that quite honestly is not playing well in the sandbox. So again, maybe it's a new group that's come together, a leadership team that's the result of a merger or a couple of different parts of the organization coming together. And they're just finding that they're not using their time effectively and quite honestly might not just be functioning as a high-performing team. And so working with them to say, let's get focused on the right issues. Let's spend your time appropriately. Let's really leverage the talent that we have around the table. And then finally, it's things around, again, an individual's personal transition. So again, working with those leaders and executives as they're faced with maybe going to a different point in their career where they're going from managing in a very operational, tactical way to leading in a very strategic way, where they've got, again, opportunities for themselves to grow and change, and they're trying to work through that for themselves.
What are one or two common misconceptions about the service that you provide or the results that they produce?
So, I think the biggest misconception around this kind of work is that what I do is the soft stuff. But, in reality, there's not really anything soft about working on issues that are going to increase the results that you achieve and really help you get results from the largest investment that you make. For most companies, if you look at their balance sheet, if you look at the profit and loss statement, the biggest internal investment that they're making is in people, in their people, in their labor costs. And so when you've got that kind of investment, how can it be the soft stuff to make sure that that's really giving you the return that you want. So without top performing leaders, without great teams, without organizations that are structured to work well, they're never going to see the ROI that you could see from all the great investments that you're making in product, in technology, in operational efficiencies, any of those kinds of things. I think the other common misconception that people think is, this change thing, it's old hat. Again, I've been doing change work for 25 years, and so 25 years ago when people were starting to think about this idea of change management, it seemed like the new thing. Truly there had been a lot of places and a lot of companies where things had been pretty status quo for a long time, and now technology was creating change. Well, fast forward 25 years, the change has only grown in complexity, multiplied in terms of how quickly it happens, and impacts us in ways that we could never have imagined before. And so it's really looking at that and thinking about, how do you work with that? How do you actually get in there and make the change work? Because it's not going to slow down. And now you've got several changes going on at once. It's not just you changing, but it's, other parts of the company changing and your client organization changing and the entire maybe, infrastructure of your industry changing. Mm-hmm. So how do you deal with that in ways that really speak to now and speak to what's going on?
Without mentioning a client by name, do you have a specific case where you were actually able to go in, engage with the customer, and actually increase their effectiveness in those areas?
Absolutely. So I can give you one or two different examples. So again, I was working with an organization, a senior leader in an organization, and what she was experiencing was she had been leading this organization for 12 years. And, in that time, the broader organization that she was supporting had grown enormously. And the industry that they were in was undergoing some really rapid and pretty extensive change. And she sat back and looked at it and said, in that course of time, we really haven't changed the way that we work. We haven't changed what we're doing and how we're approaching the work that we're doing. And quite honestly, I know that there's things that I'm involved in that I just shouldn't be involved in and that my people are involved in that they just shouldn't be involved in. Can you come in and help us think through this and think through what we really need to do? And so, again, worked with her and her team over the period of several months to really get in there, understand the work that they were doing, the environment that they were working in, the type of pressures that they were feeling, and really help them to take a step back and reorient around what are the priorities that we have, what is the work that we're really going to be doing, what is work that can come off our plates that either is better done elsewhere in the organization or really isn't supporting and adding the value that we thought. And then also we looked at the organization itself, again, if you think about those boxes on the piece of paper, and identified that there was a real gap between, the very senior people in the organization and those people who were down really executing on the front lines. And there was a real need for more people in that sort of middle layer to really help take on some of the operational things that those strategic leaders should not have been doing and free them up to really focus on a lot of those forward-thinking issues that they had to take on that was going to make sure the organization was going to be able to adjust to this rapid change that they were dealing with externally.
Okay. And they were obviously satisfied with the results, and you received good feedback from the owner.
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke with her just a few months ago, and she was going back to talking about how they've added those people that they needed to in the middle, and the results that they've achieved, and how it's really freed her and her team up to really think about how to move the organization forward and to really do some very innovative and exciting things to position them for the future.
Okay, outstanding. What do you think is the main reason that an organization decides not to engage with you? Is it price, time commitment, what others would think? What do you think that is?
Again, I think that it's oftentimes this belief that what I'm doing and what I'm bringing to the table is not core to the business. Some people, refer to it as, HR stuff, or something that doesn't really, impact the results that they're trying to achieve. That it's a nice to have, but not really a need to have. And, the fact is there's nothing that could be further from the truth. Study after study, shows that CEOs in the largest companies in the world are continually concerned with their organization's ability to innovate, with their ability to find and keep the right talent, with their ability to develop their current leaders and their future leaders. And that we know that, in those organizations that really do kind of get that down and do it well, that they do have significantly higher profit levels, significantly higher levels of stock performance, and, all those core indicators that most organizations have. And, the best teams and people working in organizations that are not executing for today and designing for tomorrow, are really not going to have the competitive advantage that they need to have.
Mm. Let's step back and let's go all the way back to the beginning. Maybe not all the way to birth, but as a as a youngster, how did you get to where you are now? How did you go from the efficiency leadership guru, and where did you start, and what motivated you to get into the line of work that you are in now?
Yeah, sure. So again, I think that early in my career, I have my educational background is in this area of communication and how does it actually work in organizations and things like that. And so, from that, the first job that I got out of college was with a small consulting firm that really was focused on creating change within organizations. It was, taking this old, command and control structure that was popular, in pre-1980s to, how do you actually do this empowerment, and how do you get people engaged and involved and help them move the business forward? And I think that's really where I caught the bug for it, in terms of this idea of, wow, really watching the impact that you're making in terms of taking a group of people or an organization from where they are now to a really different place. And seeing what they were, seeing them get excited again about work and get engaged with what they were doing, and see how they were making an impact. And so then over the course of time, I worked in that small consulting firm. I worked with one of the large multinational consulting firms in their change management practice. I went internal into corporate leadership roles for about 5 or 6 years. And then back in 1999, got the opportunity to hang out my own shingle and really make the choice to go into a solo practitioner environment, and loved it. Really got a chance to feel what it was like to run my own business, and so from that, have really responded to the environment myself. I quite honestly sort of got away from the change work for quite a while. And then it kept coming back to me, as the thing that really was the issue that people were struggling with. And so that's how I got from there to here.
Okay. Now, obviously, there are organizations that are where it's difficult or challenging to implement change, and they're used to kind of, doing the same things that they've always been doing. And then on the other end, there are organizations that could be, almost overdosing on change. Do you ever see change for change's sake and not really where it's being efficient and effective change?
Oh, Absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting that you bring that up. I was working with one of my clients that's in the high-tech sector 2 or 3 years ago, and we were having a conversation around change. And I said something about, to the outside world, you guys look like somebody who does change really well, and hands shot up in the room, and they said, oh, no, nothing could be further from the truth. We feel like we're drowning in change. We feel like that, we never kind of let it actually get to the point where it has the potential to work. That, we try something out and it's not working, and we shift gears and try something else out, and that there's, several different things going on. And, quite honestly, sometimes there's a desire for somebody to pull the brake and say, hold on. Let's peel back on this and let's actually do just a couple of things and see how they really work, and let them sort of get some traction and see what impact they make before we just keep going and going and going and throwing all these different changes at the wall.
Yeah, that reminds me of a major search engine provider when you say that, just constant change and nothing. Yeah. Yeah. So with the last 60 seconds that we have here, is there one message that you would like to convey to the listener so that if you guys don't get anything else out of this discussion, this is what I want to leave you with?
Sure. Wow, that's a great question.
Thanks.
I'll share a couple of perspectives that I have, that kind of build on what we were just saying. I think lots of times, especially in today's environment where there is so much complexity and so much change going on, that it's really easy to begin to feel personally overwhelmed or professionally overwhelmed, or at an organization level overwhelmed. And, I think my message is that, there actually is some predictability to this crazy, chaotic thing we call change, and that I can help you understand that and help people, think about what that is. And so there is actually a method to how it all works, that you can see as you experience change, and that you can't forget about and leave behind the people part of the business in terms of making sure that that's ready to change, and really, again, making sure that you've got the best leaders and that the time you're investing in creating teams is really worth it and working, and that you're positioning the organization and just the way it's structured itself in ways where you're going to attract great people, retain great people, develop great people who can execute on that strategy that you have to take you from here to there.
Very powerful insight. Now, if the listeners would like to learn more about your services and possibly contact your organization, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. So there's a couple of different ways. So if they would just like sort of a quick overview of what we're all about, and learn a little bit more about the kind of work that I do, they can go to www.factorintalent.com, or they can reach me at eoharvey@factorintalent.com, and my direct phone number is 978-475-8424.
Well, Edith, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was very informative information that you shared with our listeners, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.